information is built on a variety of nails put together in regards to ideas, forming one coffin that is called information itself. And what is information? Information is just journalism. With me here is Espila Caleb, ready to take you through broadcast journalism as a unit, and so that you can be able to understand who is a journalist, what does it entail. Well, to most of you, you hear this term broadcast journalism, and you think of an anchor standing in front of you, giving information, collecting facts out there, be it hearsay, be it tip-offs, be it everything, and you think that's all about journalism. Well, there is more to journalism. Well, let me define for you what journalism is. In our next slide, I'm going to show you the definition of broadcast journalism. So, what is broadcast journalism? Broadcast journalism is the practical theorem. Remember, these are 2 points, practical and theorem. It's the practicality of bringing out the theory. Yani theory is information, bringing it out in regards to analyzing facts. So you practically analyze these facts that you're going to collect. You practically analyze these facts that you're going to collect, and then you go gather information out there. You omit unwanted facts. Remember, data is information that has not been processed. But information that has been processed is now becoming information. What does that mean? The practical theorem of gathering facts and analyzing them changes the data into now information, something that can be ingested and understood by the audiences, right? And then you later package this information and disseminate the information to the audience. Remember, you've taken the information out there, you've picked it. You've been brought for by a reporter, the staff reporters, a correspondent, he has brought it. So there are these editors who are going to look at it. They're going to omit what is not good for there are many theories by the in broadcast journalism. As we proceed, we are going to see what are these theories that help the audience, the editors, to be able to omit information that is unwanted so that it can be good for the audience. Not all information that we receive is not all raw information that we receive is good for the audience. So that's why we have to omit some facts after analyzing it, and then we disseminate the information. Packaging means you edit it, put it in one piece, and then you disseminate. So in our next slide, we are going to see who is this practitioner, who holds the key to the information. Remember, this was the term broadcast journalism. There's this person who holds the key to the information. This person is called a journalist, right? So that's the practitioner. So in our next slide, we're going to look at the qualities of a journalist. So what are the qualities of a journalist? The qualities of a journalist include a variety of things. A journalist should be intelligent. Well, when most of us hear the word intelligent, they tend to fix their mind into being a bookworm or something. Not really. Intelligence is divided into two, or is understood into two aspects. You are either emotionally intelligent, or you have an IQ, that is, you have a certain intellectual quotient. Now that is inclined slightly towards education. Now, emotional intelligence, this is the key and the core factor in journalism. Because remember, in journalism, you should be able to work in a group setup. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is being able to connect with the person that you're working with, or the person that you're interviewing with, at a friendly level. There's something as we proceed that we are going to learn is called a rapport. It's something to deal with emotional intelligence, right? Being able to create that friendly aura, making your person to be able to be free around you. So you have to be intelligent in terms of emotional intelligence. In intellectual content, you should know a little something about everything. In the COVID-19 situation, you should be able to know why people are not allowed to touch their eyes and their noses and not the other parts of their bodies. There's something to do with vascularization. That means you should be able to read each and every part and each and every profession. You should be able to know each and every profession, how it applies and why it should be that way. Truthful and fair. Truthfulness and fair, remember, you're being given information. So, like in the previous historical times, people tended to incline to romanticization because most of these kingdoms were they were dictatorial. So if you were found speaking against the king, you will be slaughtered. So you find like there's a documentary that is airing in Nat Geo about the mummies. You find they were showing Ramses II he had defeated a variety of kingdoms, but it is not so according to Egyptians. Egyptians believe that Ramses was defeated at some point, but Egyptians are showing us that the ancient Egyptians are showing us that Ramses II was a great king. You see, so you should give information that is not romanticized, is not inclined to one segment. So that is why, as a journalist, you should look at the key of being truthful and fair. Number two, a journalist should be curious. Nothing should come as a surprise to you as a journalist. Nothing should come to you as a surprise. That means if you hear, if there is hearsay, remember there are sources of news or sources of information. And one of them is a tip-off or a hearsay. Maybe you hear a rumor that maybe the US is banning. So you should be curious enough to go and find information about the ban in USA. Is it true? Okay? Because you don't have to give information that is false based on hearsay. There is nothing in law that is of high penalty as something called ignorance. Ignorance is punished heavily. So you should be curious. Then you should have nose for news. A person who has nose for news is a person who is updated on the current information. Like currently there is something to do with Floyd, the black guy in America who was killed, that is in Minneapolis. So why is it that people around America are really fighting? Okay, most will think maybe they just want to come out and be outside, but you should be curious enough and have a nose for news for what is really happening in the contemporary. Another thing, you should be able to work in teamwork. This works very well with emotional intelligence. That means you're not selecting the people to work with. You can work with anybody. That means you can work under pressure. You can be able to adjust your personality to fit whichever personalities that you meet. You should be inquisitive. An inquisitive person is a person full of questions. Nothing just passes them. Nothing happens without them knowing. Okay. At first, I think these things usually happen when you're growing up. You do not know, but you tend to be too curious and you tend to want to know everything, some aspect of being too detailed. So it's a good thing in journalism to be inquisitive. Nothing should come to pass. Nothing should just have happened. Like you hear that Ramses II was the first king to defeat all these, the Greeks. And you're like that. You should know why he was able to defeat the Greeks. And the Greeks were good in their ammunition. Another thing, you should be creative. Remember, there's something called ad-libbing. Standing before a camera and giving a PTC, piece to camera. That is, you're giving information based on the surrounding. You should be able to construct sentences on your mind to be able to give information to the audience. So you should be creative enough. Without a script, you can just create something on your mind and you're good. And then you should be informed. Informed goes hand in hand with intellectual content. That means nothing should come to pass without you knowing. Okay? So on my next slide, we are going to look at the ethics and responsibilities of a journalist. Now that we've understood who a journalist is, what are some of their qualities, so we should look at the ethics and responsibilities of a journalist. What are ethics? Ethics are a motivating factor that is based on ideas on right and wrong. They govern each and everything in this world. They govern the medical sector. Like the medical sector, there's something called the Aristotle's oath, where you take this oath of not revealing whatever your patient is undergoing to, that if it's going to destroy the relationship between the patient and maybe the next of kin or something, you do not reveal that. If the person has a terminal illness, it's between you as the doctor and that is called the Aristotle's oath. That is ethic. It is ethics with that. It works with that. In journalism, there are a variety of ethics. So one of them is truth and accuracy. Truth and accuracy is one thing. Remember, if you're giving information, it has to be based on truth and only the truth. And the truth will work hand in hand with not being one inclined to one side. It will hurt you if you're giving information in the sports and your team has lost. But all in all, you are a person who stands with the truth. You're the voice of the people. So you have to give information based on what is there. Your team has lost, yes. Liverpool maybe, for example, maybe my team is Liverpool, has lost. So I'll have to give information based on that. Maybe it has been beaten 5-0 with an upcoming team. They might say maybe an underdog. Maybe an underdog has come and defeated Liverpool. So I'll just give information based on that. You should be impartial. Impartial means you should not give information partially so that you can be able to maybe romanticize. Remember, information is not about romanticization. It should be all wide, okay? You should be able to give fair play. Fair play is giving information that is fair. It is understandable. It is something that people can ingest and see this person did not try to hide something. He's not working for a specific organization. He's not trying to hide things from us. You see? So you should also be a person who seeks the truth and report it, not getting information and reporting it. There is a difference. You get the information, go inside and investigate. Look deep into it. What caused this factor? What caused the fire? Okay, there was a fire that happened in White House long time ago, 300 years ago. But still you can go and look. What caused these people to burn down the White House back then, 300 years ago? You see, you don't just report, okay? So you should be a person who seeks the truth and report it. Another thing, you should be accountable. Yes, you've gotten this information and it is this way. Maybe you're in court and you're supposed to defend yourself. So how will you be accountable if you're not having facts and figures? Now that's where the importance of having facts and figures comes in. You should have facts and should be able to be creative enough to create more facts that will back up your facts based on the truth, okay? And then number 3, lastly, you should be able to act independently. What does that mean? You should not go with the majority of the crowd, as in what the crowd is doing is what you're doing. You should be able to have your own mind, a person of your own mind, a person who can be able to go to the field. You've seen maybe houses in Ruai burning down, or maybe they have been demolished because of the curfew or during the time of the curfew. You should be a person sober enough to take some video clips and send it to a media house. This is what is really happening, so that you can be your own source. Okay? So that is acting independently based on self-motivation. It is a quality in journalism. It is an instinct as a journalist you should be able to have. So on my next slide, I'm going to look at 8 aims of a journalism student. What are some of the 8 aims of a journalism student? Remember, I've taken you through the ethics of a journalist and also the core factors of a journalist. What are the qualities of a journalist? So now let's look at the 8 aims. What are you supposed to gain in the end after being a journalism student? So you should be able to understand what makes a good story. Good stories are made, okay, Walter Cronkite, an NBC reporter and an anchor, said, bad news is good news. Well, we are all familiar with that. Gossip spreads faster than praise. If a kingdom that if US today falls economically and China overrides US, remember, it is alleged that this virus came from China. But if US falls to its knees right now, this will spread. It will spread. This is a superpower, you see. So have the aspect that bad news is always good news. A good story is always revolving around the bad things. It's even common. If you graduate, your story will just disappear within a year. But if in your graduation you are shot dead as a robber, that will spread. Now that's a key thing that you should look at as a journalist. You should be able to Not only focus on bad news, but look at whatever that is going to be of human interest. Okay? Number 2, look for a suitable angle for a story. Not all of us will see whatever it is as it is. We are all, we see the world from our own eyes. There's someone who will be very interested in cars, a person will be very interested with the human element, a person will be very interested in fashion. So remember I told you, one of the things you should have as a qualities of a journalist is to act independently, have your own mind. You should not follow politics because people are going to shoot politics. Look at maybe, you can see a journalist who will go and look at a torn shoe of an MP. It is something that is going to catch the attention of people. A torn shoe of an MP, that is satirical, you see. It is humorous. It will capture the attention of the people. So that is something we should also look into. Number 3, you should be able to critically understand what is journalism. You understand? Journalism is the factor of collecting information and disseminating. So we should just understand what entails journalism. Also, we should also have a sense of consciousness towards journalism. What does that mean? It means you should be able to tweak your information in a way that it will explain more what journalism is all about, okay, to the masses. In the way that you're giving the information to the people, people will get to understand this is journalism, this is not propaganda. That is the difference. Remember, I've told you journalism, broadcast journalism is omitting out facts that are not good, looking at stories at an angle that will give interest to the people. And what is interesting to the people? Bad news is good news. It's a good story, okay? So also you should be able to get information. A good journalist is a person who is able to get information. How do we get information? We do not rely on hearsay. Remember, there are sources of, okay, as we proceed, we are going to look at sources of news. And one of the sources of news, there is hoax. What is a hoax? A hoax is a story that has not been proven and it's sort of not true. Yes? So you should be able to get information in the aspect that it is not going to look like a hoax. Okay? And also, in getting information, you should be able to dig deeper into whatever that has been given by a tip-off. Is it true that some people have fought in the market? Okay? So you go and look into that. And you should also understand theories in journalism. There are a majority and myriads of theories in journalism. There are many. Why we edit, why we say what we are saying, it is all under the aspect of theories in journalism. Why we should omit facts that are not true and why we should give facts that are true. They are all revolving around theories of journalism. So you should be able to be a good reader. So those are the vital aims of being a journalist. So most of you have heard of David Attenborough, the BBC narrator. This guy, he's good at what he does. Okay, he has specified in wildlife, but the way he narrates, it is a person who narrates and you can feel and can relate with what he's saying. You can actually see, you can actually put yourself in the shoes of that animal that he's filming. You see, so this is a person who has understood all the theories in journalism and he has been able to tweak it into the wildlife sector. Okay? So in my next slide, we are going to look at something that all of you have heard of. Everyone in this world has grown knowing news. It is reaching, it's prime time, it is news. Maybe it's 9 or 7, it's news time. So what is this animal called news? Okay? News is something, it's a term that is used to define information that respects all the principles of the 5 W's and the H, and is information that is new to the audience. That is according to Walter Cronkite. I know I've mentioned in some way within the lesson. So news is something that represents all the respects all the 5 W's and H principles. What is the 5 W's and H? Someone will want to know. That is, who said what, where, when, and why? And how did he say it? That is in the aspect of statement. Who said what, where, when, and how? And why did he say it? So if it respects all that, and it's information that is not known, that is news. Whatever I'm giving you as a student right now is news. You understand? So that is what I can define as news. It's not anything that is broader than that or anything that is slimmer than that. It respects all the 5 W's and H, and that is that. So in my next slide, we're going to look at, as we proceed, we're going to look at news values and news elements. So let me take you to my next slide and tell you some conditions of news. What are some of the things that make news to be favorable? Okay, rather conditions. What are the favorable conditions for germination? There has to be water, there has to be warmth, and there has to be a soil. There has to be soil so that a seed can be able to germinate, right? Warmth, water, soil. Those are the conditions for germination. So what are the conditions for news? Number one, it has to be unexpected. News is not news if it's expected. If you expect me to say what I'm saying, it's not news to you. Okay? It will be news if now that whatever I'm saying to you is not expected. Like if I tell you about David Attenborough, that is news. But if you know about him, it's not news. So it has to be unexpected. It has to have some ambiguity. Something that you cannot understand, you need to understand more. Ambiguous. Okay? I'm not talking about jargons. I'm talking about ambiguity. You need to understand more. What is this news all about? If it's talking about the person who was murdered, that is Floyd. So what more? What led him to be murdered? And why are people rioting? Personalization. There has to be the person, the aspect of that person who is being talked about, human interest. That people's stories, gossip is always sweet. Gossip is interesting. It's even in the Bible, the book of Proverbs. It is interesting. There is nothing as sweet as gossip. How good you want to ingest it? That's what Proverbs says. So personalization, talking about a person, idolizing a person, it's quite interesting. Meaningfulness. News is news if it's meaningful. It has to have meaning. You have to understand what this thing is all about. What is the meaning behind? What is the end result of watching this news? COVID has been really talked for about 3 months in East Africa. But what is the meaning of having COVID being understood and being talked of? Okay? Reference to the elite, it's more or less like personalization. An elite figure, like a prominent figure catching corona, like the case of Boris Johnson, though he was dismissed from hospital. Boris Johnson, when he got corona or COVID-19, most people were worried that the UK Prime Minister might die, but eventually he got out of there, and whatever measures he took were inclined to what he had experienced during the time he was in the ICU. So people were really referring to that. Right now, the Prince of Belgium has gotten the COVID as late as yesterday. He got the COVID. So people will really want to refer to the Prince of Belgium. Why? What really happened at that particular time? Conflict is a very, very... Remember, let me tell you something. When God created Earth, he brought a small insect. And this insect is called conflict. Everything was peaceful. Animals were named what. But conflict is what revolves around us to date. It is what defines a story. Without conflict, there is no story. Without drama, there is no story. The serpent lying to whoever to take the fruit, that is conflict. It was something that was agreed that they should not eat. So if news has that conflicting figure, something has not flown very well. An MP has been impeached. We've seen Moses Wetangula was ousted. That is conflict. Something is not running smoothly somewhere. That is news. We are personalizing. We have personalized the person. We've looked at it in depth. But right now, he has been ousted. So That is news. There should be continuity. Is there life after COVID? Countries are opening economies, places like US, people are going to the beaches, you see. So there is continuity, but there is the 2-meter rule. Now, right now it's not really 1 meter, it's 2 meter. So economies so there has to be there has to be life after the conflict. What happens after Wetangula has been ousted? Is there going to be a resolution? Okay, then there should be composition. A good story should be composed. There should be a head, middle, and the end. What is the end after that? Okay, so now that we've seen the conditions for news, this is how the news will germinate. Remember, we've put the soil, water, and warmth. So our seed news will germinate. So in my next slide, I shall take you to news values. Values are what make a news story to be quite different from any other story. There's a news story and a feature story. A feature story is an educative story that is not up to date. It is educative and entertaining. News is the current contemporary happenings that is unexpected, like I've told you. It is unexpected. It has to feature on an elite person, but at a short perspective. But remember, in feature stories, you can look at a person in a lengthy way. And it is not going to be daily. We can look at you at a fortnight. We can look at you, a fortnight is 2 weeks. At a fortnight, quarterly, that means within 3 months in a year. We can look at a person maybe after 1 year. I'm talking about magazines. But news is daily. So what are some of the news values that we should look at? News values, so that news can be news, it has to be accurate. There has to be accuracy in terms of the angle you are taking. That's why as journalists, you should not focus on one angle. That's why you should look at fashion, maybe a torn shoe, or maybe a president walking to town, or maybe the president driving himself to work. That is an angle you can focus on when you're acting independently, and it can give you a good view of what is really happening. Okay? So you're going to give accurate information based on looking at one angle. Another thing, you have to be concise. Concise and preciseness is one and the same thing. You have to be consistent and concise. That means you should be like straight in terms of the information you're giving. It should be in line with the information you're giving. Factual, okay? Active voice. There is writing for print and writing for TV. Writing for print, there has to be passive. It should be in passive, past continuous tense, okay? But in this one, it's present continuous. In news, writing for broadcast, that is writing for TV, it has to be present continuous. It has to be continuing. It should, for example, we should say the president of Zimbabwe dies at 95. It is something that shall be referred later and later and later. It's footage. But for print, it should be in past tense, okay? So what makes news that is for the TV that is good, it should be in an active voice, because it's something that can be referred later. Whatever maybe I'm giving that can be recorded, it can be in an active voice, okay, to keep it live. So that, and then another thing, it should be relevant. What is relevance? Relevance is in line, or it is going in line with what is happening, what is relating with the people of that country. Whatever is happening in the US cannot really bother you if you're in another country. Okay, it will bother you in terms of human interest because a person is dead, but how is the economy of US bothering you as a person in Africa? You see, so the news should be relevant. Okay, a practical example, a plane from another country comes and falls. You will be concerned if your relative was in that plane. Okay, so that news will be very relevant to you. But it will be relevant, more relevant, if the economy of a particular country that you're in shuts down. Okay, that news will be very relevant. So another thing about news should be opinion attributed. Every news that you give should leave people with something to discuss, something to think about. News without any opinion is not news. Okay? Like, why was this particular MP ousted? Why was someone like Chris Wamalwa removed from being a Secretary General? A person who was so vibrant in the ODM. Everyone knew him. Why is Eseli the Secretary General of Ford Kenya now working for ODM? You understand? There has to be some opinion towards it. Okay? Why is it that Floyd, a black person, in a country where racial discrimination still exists, sparkles protests all over the country? That is news. Okay? It should be fair and balanced. Fair and balanced means there should be no romanticization. I've really said this point over and over again. Romanticization is streamlining a point or inclining a point to information to one particular side, to favor this particular side. So news should have some aspect of fair and balance. Okay? Then there should be truth and objective. We should be able to see some truth in the news that you give. Not actually some. Some is an understatement. It should be truth. So on my next slide, we're going to look at elements of news. What are elements of news? Elements of news are basically the composition of news. The elements of matter. What are the elements of matter? Atoms, molecules. Those are some of the elements of matter. What are the elements? The elements of whatever materials that we have. We have sodium, lithium, magnesium, boron, all of those. Those are elements, composition. So what are the elements of news? So there has to be some aspect of prominence. We have to feature on people who are prominent figures in the society. Speak of presidents, speak of socialites. Those are, we should see some aspect of prominence. It's very catchy. Looking at conflict-related information based on the prominence. There should be some aspect of impact. Impact means we should feel, this news should be able to have some punch. You get, there should be some punch in the information that you give. There should have some human interest. When a dog crosses the road and it's gotten to be hit, it's not information. It's not really going to be catchy. But when a person is hit on the road, you'll want to know. Or let's say you find a human skull in a room. You walk in a room and you find a human skull. It will interest you, why is this human skull over here? Or you find a dead body outside your house. There's something that, I don't know if it happens to everyone else, but to me it triggers some fear in the soul. So you should look at that. And then there's something called proximity. How near or far the information is. Information that is near to you works well with you than information that is far away. I've given you an example of on a plane that flies all the way and falls. That will not work if it doesn't affect you. Bizarreness. Anything that is bizarre means odd or oddity. Anything that is odd is news. Anything that is not odd is just basic information. What do I mean? If Trump decides to work with China today after discriminating them and talks, it's going to be bizarre. Okay? There's some conflict. So conflict and bizarreness works together. Okay? I've talked about conflict. Conflict is when information that is supposed to flow smoothly does not flow smoothly. So that brings an aspect of disruption of the information, and that sparkles curiosity. We are curious beings, so sparkles curiosity in human beings. So we have to look at that. Timeliness. How immediate is this information? So timeliness and immediacy goes hand in hand. How timely is this information? Has it reached immediately? Okay, is it a fortnight? If it reaches after a fortnight, this information is not timely. It becomes now a feature story. Okay, so on to my next slide. There is significance, relevance. Significance and relevance work hand in hand. That means how this information is relating to you as a person or as people, how this information is relating to you as people is going to be quite relevant in terms of if a plane falls down or if a coffee factory falls in Kenya, the people who are going to be affected are the casual workers who work in that factory, because they'll wonder what will really happen to us in terms of salary. But the people who are not in that particular factory will not really wonder. will not really care because they are working elsewhere. Or even organization faults. That is information that is going to be relevant and significant to them. Another thing, there is currency. How particular is this information? How current is this information? What is happening right now is very juicy. Drama. If this drama of a husband and wife fighting is of an elite person and it's happening right now, it's going to be catchy. So currency and drama and conflict works hand in hand. News is interesting with something called this animal over here. We call it an inverted pyramid. A pyramid, generally, let me draw it. A pyramid looks something like that. But when we tilt it, it turns to this. So it becomes an inverted pyramid. So it contains stories and interest to the stories. So what causes the stories to be interesting? Okay? So interesting stories come right here, and we say it is most important. This is the catchy, it's the most catchy component. Most important. It's the catchy component of information. Then we have important. Then we have least important. So what causes the least important? What causes the least important to be least is information that is not quite catchy or does not interest people a lot. That's maybe why the sports is usually at the end, because not most people are usually interested in sports. So I'll put sports over here in the least important. I'll also put something like business over here because not everyone is interested in business. I'll put cars over here. Okay? I'll put celebrity gossip over here. Though this can fit, celebrity gossip can also fit in important. Okay? Important, also we have celebrity gossip. We have things like celebrity gossip. We have things like land. We have things like real estate. It is important. A percentage of people need it, like 60 to 70% need it. So in most important, we have things like economy. We have things like disease. Everyone will work with this. So this is what makes news. So I believe we have covered a mirage or a large segment of broadcast journalism. You have now understood what comprises of broadcast journalism, what it takes to be a journalist. So in case you have any questions, you can be able to download the notes and look at that. And also, you can be able to interact with me through Zoom so that you can be able to ask some questions. I've been SP Lakaleb, a lecturer in broadcast journalism. See you next time.